What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. I'm James. Mary's here. Aaron is out because he had a kid. We're both super proud of him and proud of him for taking time off, spending time with his family. We are going to talk about something cool today that was inspired by a LinkedIn post that Mary, at this point, has not posted yet. Is just brewing in her head. She's probably trying to steal content from me,
for sure,
via talking with me. But that's like leveling up. How do you, are you getting better as a marketer? How do you make sure you keep getting better? And Mary kind of pitched this to me with maybe it's a hot take. I don't know what counts as a hot take anymore, but I'm just going to turn it over to Mary in terms of her hot take about like leveling up as a marketer.
Yeah. So to kind of prep for the episode, James and I knew we wanted to talk about something related to, so James is content director at Girl 76. I'm now head of marketing at Map My Customers. So we wanted to talk about like what it's like to, either work for a director has changed or moved in, what it's like to be a director. And then I was like, yeah, you know what else is interesting? Just out of the blue. I think that in order to be a better marketer, since that's really my best frame of reference, you have to work at an agency or you have to switch jobs a lot, especially early in your career, because you're just not getting enough at-bats. You need a lot of at-bats and you need to see a lot of different instances or ways that companies do marketing, especially in B2B, in order to level up as a marketer. So you don't necessarily have to like be a director, VP level, like by the time you're 30 or something. You just need to see a lot of instances of what it's like to do marketing at different companies.
Yeah, and I think that I really do agree with that to a certain extent. I mean, it takes a totally different type of person. Like, I am not the type of person that would level up in-house. Like, I am not, like, I just don't have the growth mindset. I don't have I'm not that kind of go-getter. And it shouldn't be mandatory. You should be able to get better without, dedicating all of your time outside of work to getting better. Getting better should be something that can happen by virtue of you doing your job with a lot of care and intent. I guess like a good first question is like, how do you know, what is it, or what does it feel like? How can you identify that you're not getting enough at bats? Like from your perspective, what are like the signs that if someone listening to this might be like, okay, I hope Mary doesn't say like X, Y, or Z, because then I feel like I'm going to need to get a new job.
Yeah, or level up in your organization. I think one of the red flags for me is definitely willingness of your leadership to experiment in marketing channels. So this doesn't have to be, I want $100,000 to run paid social for the next 6 months. It doesn't have to be this big, giant, grand thing. But one of the red flags for me when I was in-house at a company, really looking to level up, really looking to expand my marketing experience and just get better. I didn't necessarily want to be the director of marketing or move into a manager role. I just wanted to be a better marketer. And part of that was experimenting in digital channels. And the appetite for that at my company was like negative. There were some people who, encouraged me to experiment and wanted me to experiment. But unfortunately, those weren't my direct leaders who I needed permissions from in order to do it. So a lot of my ideas were shut down. And I think that's a really easy red flag, is if your ideas are continually getting shut down and the reasons behind them don't really make a lot of sense, then that's probably a red flag that you need to level up in a new way. Have you ever experienced anything like that in your career, James? Like where you're just like they're just like, no, you can't do that.
I mean, I I definitely have. Um, Usually it was, I think a lot of times, when you're a writer or an editor, especially when you're a writer, in some places also when you're an editor, but you're so execution driven. Like the other folks, sometimes it's just so obvious that the other folks at the company that you are working at could not give a shit what even goes on in your head. Like it's like we don't care about this person's ideas. We didn't hire you for your ideas. Like we don't know how to do this thing and you do it. It's like kind of the silo that sometimes what I don't think companies do that so much to writers as they might have, 15 years ago, or even like 10 years ago when I was like looking for jobs while in college. And you end up just doing some of the worst work. But I feel like that's what's going to happen to like programmers. And you think of all the people that are like in their company thinks about them purely as execution um, folks. And it's not the way it works. Like everyone has to be able to think through their job. And like so that experience is probably pretty common for folks that get into marketing through the door of writing, um, which I know is kind of a little bit like you were an English major.
Yeah.
And I think a converse of that I want to note as a red flag is because one way to synthesize that is we're not trying anything. I'm not getting to try anything new. I'm not getting to do anything that I haven't done before. Another red flag is I'm doing all this stuff that I haven't done before that I have no interest in whatsoever. Like I am now being tasked with personal growth in areas that I don't care about. Like I want to become a better, like if I wanted to get into videography and we hire a new videographer, and it's not me, and like I am shot down at every chance of like asking Nick for help or taking a course or something. Like that's one thing. But then if I'm also being asked to level up in like, gosh, if I'm being asked to level up in programming and dev, and I don't care about programming or dev, and I don't want it, like that's a problem. That like that's just another. You're getting farther and farther away from the path that you're looking for. I would say that's like the secondary red flag on top of the one that you said that tends to be a bad sign, and honestly I think is like something you need to talk with your leadership about sooner rather than later. Like you should be capable of having a conversation with your leadership that's like, hey, here's where my head's at regarding my career and what I want, the skills I want to build and how I want to improve. And like, I want to be able to get that here. I really do. Like, am I going to be able to get that here? And like, you don't have to like tell them you're going to leave. You don't have to like say either you're going to have to fire me or you're going to have to like, you don't have to do any of that. But it's important that you have that conversation because at that point you're starting to move in the wrong direction, in my opinion. But
yeah, for sure.
What's different about the agency then? Like why then would you why in your opinion are you better off at an agency?
I think with the agency, you get a lot of at bats, and I'll describe what that means, with a lot of different kinds of companies in a short period of time. So, especially if you work for an agency like Gorilla 76, where they're executing kind of like a full program, it's not just we only write blogs or we only do, Google ads. It's like we do Google ads, we do paid social, we write blogs, we do your website. Like you get to see a lot of different marketing tactics being executed. And then you get to see that like times 10. So you usually have anywhere from like, 3 to 8 accounts that you're touching at any given time at an agency like that. And you get to see those every single day. And even better if you work at one like Gorilla where you want access to their CRM. So now you also get to see how those things perform over time. And then that really sets you up for seeing how like if you want to take this next step, this is, one of these things where like leveling up, if you really want to level up, you can use the CRM instance to really understand like the internal business processes too, depending on how the company uses it. So just in terms of an agency, you just get so much very specific experience in such a short period of time. Do you feel like that's true? Like, cause you didn't come from an agency before, right?
I had never worked in marketing before.
Yeah.
And I think that that's true. And I think a huge, like, it'd be tough to overstate the last bit about if you're in their CRM, if you're somewhere where you're being held accountable to things that really matter to the business as a whole, so that you have access to some of that knowledge and some of that data, and you're in some of those conversations. If you're at an agency where that's happening, it's hard to overstate how crazy valuable that is. If you're interested in being like a marketing leader, like not just like leveling up your execution, but like if you're career pathing yourself out to being like wanting to be a director of marketing or something like that, like you see so many different businesses. And you see so many different, like in talking to folks, like Gorilla's clients don't all want marketing for the same reason. Like it's, it's hard to, if you would think if you only consumed Gorilla's marketing materials that that's the case, but it's like, that's just because we position ourselves a particular way. But like, these folks have all sorts of reasons that they want to keep working with us or want to start working with us, or expectations for what marketing will do. And if you only work with one client, which is your company, you miss like so much discourse and so much thinking and back and forth about what the actual value of your job is. You miss so many opportunities to like just sit down and think about the thing that someone said, because you did all of that the first 6 months you were at the job and you didn't hear anything new, and you didn't field any new questions, and you didn't. So I do think that that's true. And from the execution side, especially, because that's really big from like the strategic thinking side of things, like leveling up your strategic thinking, that's huge. But if you're just trying to like build your craft, like if you're writing, for instance, and you're just trying to get better at the craft, a huge benefit is more different folks looking at your work. There's something really valuable in having one like really strong, helpful editor who you can really ride for, where you're like, this person is physically improving my work every time they look at it. But if that's all you have, and you don't have this constantly rotating sea of other people that are now chiming in on what you're doing, you're missing this whole other side of the coin. And that is, in my opinion, pretty big in, especially in like creative like if your craft is creative and now you're using it in marketing, sometimes that's like a hard transition for people to make successfully. Say like, I was writing short stories in food journalism, now I'm writing marketing material, like I'm writing for marketing materials. Like there's a lot of ways that goes wrong. And an easy way it goes right is you get so much different feedback. Like you just start getting, you get more feedback than you need. But it's a good position to be in. And I think the same thing is true with like, something unique about Gorilla is we don't work in teams. like we work in teams on individual accounts, but I don't just have one strategist, and I don't just have one, I don't only work with one designer. I don't only work with one account executive. Um, so again, that's just more sets of people that are looking at my work that have just different points of view and different feedback that I can receive. It just kind of like, I don't want to put a number on it, but it X's your growth in some way. I think it'd be hard again to overstate that from the execution side.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think like what we were talking about right before we hit record was, and I think this is like a good summary of it, there's an actual like opportunity cost, regardless of what your career goals are, for not switching, either switching jobs frequently or working at an agency for like 1 to 4 years. Because like you said, James, like you are just exposed to so much, and we're in very different career paths. Like you're honing a craft. I want to like, level up in a career in like strategic, multifaceted way. But like we both gained so much from being at the agency level because like you said, get a lot of feedback, you get exposed to a lot of different things. You are on a team with other writers who are really, really good. So you get a lot of positive feedback from them. So I would argue there's like a really severe career opportunity cost for not working at an agency or switching jobs frequently.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of costs for switching jobs frequently, that don't apply in the same way at an agency. And agency culture kind of feels like guerrilla aside, because it does. I don't feel this at work, but I know people that work at marketing agencies, and it's like every time you talk to them, they're pissed about their job or something. It's like that's a different that's its own cost if you're going to put yourself in a situation like that, obviously. But yeah, I couldn't agree more in terms of like you do need to evaluate the possibility that you're missing out on something, if you're not in that situation and you're trying to level up. Like you don't have to level up, you don't have to get better, but most folks who are just like marketing practitioners right now need to be getting better to keep their job long term and to be successful long term. It's really hard to keep up with changes in folks' attitudes, above you at a company. It is not, it doesn't matter if it's fair. It doesn't matter if, none of that stuff matters. If you get a new director of marketing, or your company chooses to like rethink the way that it works, and you have just been complacent and settled, like that sucks. Like people lose their jobs. So it kind of is like, it's important to a point to at least understand that you've got to be able to do more than one thing. You've got to be able to work more than one way. You've got to be able to solve more than one type of problem. And the easiest way to start feeling confident that you can do that is to work at an agency where that becomes part of the requirement. Like you have to be a little bit more multifaceted. You have to be able to work for different people. You have to be able to work in different, maybe industries even.
Yeah, so that is a super unique situation. And I think the only time that that's a green flag for a hiring manager, like, I'm going to be hiring new team members likely in the next, 9 to 12 months. And the only way that I would look at career history where they're switching jobs every 8 months for, 3 to 5 years is I'm going to start asking questions to see if they're just a super intelligent high achiever. So they're just really good at absorbing things and executing really quickly. So they were able to see the results of their actions. Because the problem with short stints is, good marketing does take time. It's kind of trite. Everyone says it, but it's true. So if you're marketing at places for only 8-month stints, are you really there long enough to see the fruits of your labor? Right. So the only way I can see it working is, yeah, they're a super high achiever and they did something really great and, it worked out. So they continued the playbook or iterated on the playbook. So I think that's the only time when it really works out where I would see like a green flag from it. What do you think?
I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, I think in terms of like craftsmanship, um, the way to make it work, like the way that it becomes valuable, is if you really approach every new opportunity with like a lot of vigor and confidence. Like it can be hard to like show up in a new role and bring it, like, and take people to task and like, seek conflict where you're having tough conversations. Why don't we do it this way? Why do we do it that way? um, if you're the type of person that does that, you can get a lot out of constantly moving, um, because you can basically hash out all the details. You can have all of like the interesting conversations about, why do we do work the way? Why does the business operate this way? Why, you can learn all of that, um, and actually use it. I think the caveat is the thing that you said, which is in terms of like how my skills translate in marketing, which like everyone says that their skills do. I'm hiring right now. Like everybody says that they know how their skill set translates to marketing. But to actually know, you need to see something. You need to be harvesting the same fruit you planted. And that is the thing that gets hard. So I agree with what you said.
Yeah,
For
I have a
sure.
good question there, like following up on what you just said. So you said like a lot of people are like, hey, I do this. It translates really well to marketing. I was a food blogger. I think it translates really well to marketing. Um, MJ Smith had like this awesome LinkedIn post the other day. And it was like, if you want to switch industries or you want to switch jobs, so you want to go from product marketing to project management, kind of in the same vein, but not really. Her argument is that you need to do everything 2x. So your interview needs to be 2 times better than every other applicant. Your resume needs to be 2 times better. You need to prove yourself 2 times more. So, like, as someone hiring right now and having all these people say, oh, yeah, my experience translates to marketing, don't worry about it. Do you agree? Like, if they were trying 2x harder to convince you, using results and experiences and their portfolio, like, would you buy it?
Um, I don't think that that's how it translates for a writer position at Gorilla. I think that I can see your writing sample. Your writing needs to be better than the person who doesn't have marketing experience, because the things that are happening, it's like, okay, anytime someone gets a new job anywhere, there's an amount of like, we're onboarding this person into the way that we interact with each other as a company, the way that like our processes work, how where you really need to fall in line, where we'd love for you to not, where things like that, like, so everyone's onboarding in that regard. Everyone's like really quickly upskilling into what it's like to be an employee at this company. um, a lot of times, like, honestly, people are really at Gorilla, people a lot of times need to upskill interviewing folks because we build content off of interviews. So a lot of times I'm doing that. If you don't have that experience already, we're really working hard to get you there. If we also have to like really do a lot of craft building with you, like, that is, we're not taking that on. There's an amount that like there's so many things that I want to be able to, like, I want to be a part of this person getting better. Um, but I don't trust myself or any other human being to like, or a team of human beings to help one person like level up 4 different things in the first, 6 months that they're somewhere. So I think for me, it's like if you don't have like demonstrated experience writing and marketing, that has never been a determiner at Gorilla of whether or not it makes sense to hire you. But what is the thing that makes sense to hire you is the writing. Like we're hiring you based on experience and writing sample. Like the chops will differentiate you if you don't. If you're in like an execution craft, like you say that your skills will translate, it's going to look, someone's going to be a lot more confident that they will if the writing is heat. And at the end of the day, like it's cutthroat. It just is. It's too cutthroat. It's a shame, but I think I think that MJ's example makes sense, but I don't think it translates to like craft driven. I don't want to say that like project management isn't craft, but like execution of deliverables. Like I care about your product. It's like if you were making spoons and say like you want to try and learn how to make forks and you go to work for a company that makes forks, it's like I'm going to need to see one of those spoons. Like, yeah, you tell me this experience translate, but I don't even know if you were doing it well. I want to know that you're doing it well. Yeah. That's what I care about is like, are you delivering a quality product? If so, I think that I can help you deliver it in any setting. I bet I could help you make a knife. But I need to see that you've made a pretty damn good spoon. I feel like that's kind of the difference between execution level and like systems oriented, strategy oriented. Like those things are kind of different in that regard.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What are your thoughts about that? Do you agree with her?
Let's see. As someone who, again, might be hiring in the next like 9 to 12 months, kind of, yeah. Because like the roles I'm looking for would be in another strategic role or, to your point, a craft driven role. So those are like the only 2 options I really have at my disposal. And it really just depends on how successful 2023 is for us and where I feel like the gaps need to be addressed in like strategy versus skill sets. So if it's a craft driven thing, I'm totally in your boat. Like just show me what you do and I can figure out if it's going to translate well or not. And then if it's more of a strategic kind of, you're going to have your hands in a lot of different channels or tactics, then yeah. And you're coming from something like, so we sell a SaaS product. If you're coming from like the automotive aftermarket where you're selling like parts, like D2C or something like direct to consumer, then yeah, you're going to need to prove to me that you like have the strategic chops to consider the differences in B2B buying versus D2C buying, just as an example. So yeah, I get what she's saying, but I like that you separated it in craft versus systems thinking. That was cool. Gave me something to think about.
Do you think, and this is maybe like a whole different, this is almost like piggybacking and not a part of the main discussion, but so if you're going to hire a craft driven person, like a writer or a designer,
yeah,
because you feel like you have a skills gap there, what does someone need to show you to keep you from going freelance with that? Like if you're on the fence and you're like, okay, like I know that we could freelance, I know that we could contract some of this out, and I know you know people who are potentially or quite probably better at writing that would do it, that would do freelance work. what does someone need to show you beyond the writing or the design or whatever to make them like a good hire, like a good full-time hire? Because again, like if you, especially if you don't know that you're going to hire that person right now, like it's obviously a risk to hire anyone. um, what are you looking for a full-time candidate versus a freelancer?
Yeah, I think a full-time candidate is appealing for me as a hiring person because freelancers potentially have a lot of clients. So if I have a full-time employee, I know I'm obviously client number one. So any work I have, I can give them, I can give it a priority level, and I know it's going to get done by a certain time. So that's really appealing about a full-time hire. The major thing I'm looking for then is probably pretty similar. I've vetted a lot of freelancers in the past couple months, and it seems like they do kind of fall into camps. So, like, you have your SEO specialists, you have your case study specialists, you have your like technical article specialists. So, I guess like what I would really want to see is, can you do a little bit of everything? But the things that I'm looking for, just knowing what our product is, are case studies for sure. So, can you tell me a good story? Can you write for the people? As in, like, can you write for my customer in a way that is appealing to my customer? Um, and can you make um, a product sound interesting? So that's what I would be most curious about for a full-time hire. So I'm candidate number one. Can you write the kinds of content I need? And can you tell a good story?
I have a feeling that like the person who makes the person who thrives, maybe this means outside of agency world, um, and maybe they're the type of person that wouldn't be able to translate all their skills into like going solopreneur and freelancing. It's just someone who can like make use of the opportunity for depth. Like someone who has like the type of attitude or ability to communicate, like something about the way that they think about things tells you like, okay, in 4 months this person is going to know more about my product than I do.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like
that's a great example.
Because you're not getting that in this exact same way or it's going to take way longer if you just use the same freelancer over and over and over again. Like someone who will take advantage of being able to dive in. Yeah. Take notes, people. You could be working at Matt, My Customers next year. No, that's cool. I think this was a good conversation. I guess the ending question to you is just like, strike a nerve, let people know what they need to look out for, what they need to do, what the takeaways are, sum it up, wrap it up.
Yeah, I think unless you are at the place you want to retire at, so like really take a step back and be like, is this company where I want to retire? If you answer yes to that question, stay in your job. Keep doing your thing. Accept the opportunity cost of not switching. If you are like, no, I don't see myself retiring here. I see myself probably moving on and becoming a director, or I want to be a solopreneur. I want to open my own consulting business one day. You cannot stay at a job for too long. You just can't. I mean, I don't know if the job market is going to change, but unless you're working at something like an agency where you're exposed to a lot of different clients, or if you want to stay in-house and you just want to go deep, like you said, really get depth on a specific industry or a specific type of customer, then you just got to move around a lot. So that's kind of your wake-up call. If you are sitting at an in-house company and you've been there for 5 years and you want to level up in some way, this is your wake-up call. It's time to maybe start looking around.
Yeah,
Girl is hiring.
It's a good wake up call. I think it's strong advice. I think a good example is that I did not work in marketing 3 years ago. I don't know if I worked in marketing 2 years ago. I don't really remember the math. I think it hasn't even been 2 years.
Yeah.
So, if you've been in marketing and you want to be getting better, like how quickly do you think you're getting better? Because I feel like I was maybe a 3, and I feel like at least an 8.5 now, and it has not
100%.
been 2 years. And there's an amount of, like, I'm as confident about content marketing as I was about like soft journalism after doing that for 5 or 6 years with like a single company. So I think it's worth thinking about how important that is to you, and taking Mary's advice that the best way to prioritize that is to get yourself to an agency. But yeah, hope to hear from y'all. Hit us up on LinkedIn. Weeks, we miss you. Well, you'll be back soon enough, I'm sure. And yeah, hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Peace, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.